We're doing something together finally after 31 years of marriage.
Yeah, we've been together for 31 years, but we've never actually shared the pulpit together. So this is a new thing.
And you know what I've discovered, Lisa, is that men and women are different, and you and I are different in the way we prepare our messages, and it's been a real journey, hasn't it?
It has been.
It's been a lot of fun.
It has been enlightening.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
But you know, we've come together for a common goal, a common purpose, and that is to discuss marriage. Because as you and I know, and I think it's pretty obvious to everybody, marriages have been under attack for years.
Yeah.
But recently, it's the institution of marriage that's coming under attack.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you know, I mean, we've been talking about that. We felt like we've had people say, "Why don't you guys do a marriage curriculum?" And we've just said, "You get attacked in the areas that you preach in, so
right.
We're not doing marriage and we're not doing parenting. We're just going to talk about other things." But when we began to see that the very definition and the very foundational core of what marriage was under an assault, we felt like we couldn't be quiet anymore.
Right.
God
Absolutely.
is the one who created marriage. It was His idea. And He is the creator, is the only one that has the right to define it. And so you and I talked about how we felt like we needed to talk about this. Malachi 2:15 and the message says, God, not you, made marriage. His Spirit inhabits even the smallest details of marriage.
I love that.
So guard the spirit of the marriage within you. Don't cheat on your spouse. And we talked about the whole goal of these sessions was we want to teach people how to guard the spirit of your marriage. Not just your marriage, but the spirit of your marriage, because we're going to actually be telling a story with our marriage that the world needs to see. And
And I love the spirit of our marriage.
Yeah.
And when you think about God being the author, what is the enemy going to try to do? He's going to do with everything in his might to bust up what God has created, which He calls very good. And if you look at the stats, it's staggering, because 40 to 50% of first-time marriages end up in the divorce court, and 60% of second marriages end up in the divorce court. And you know, Lisa, people that say they're Christians, it's the same stats, but people who attend church regularly, it drops way down to 38%.
Yeah.
And do you know people that pray together, couples that pray together, it goes even much further. So you can see when you get God involved, and that's why I want to commend everybody that's watching this curriculum, couples and whoever you are, because you are investing in something that is so important, that was right from the beginning. And so I love this, guard the spirit of your marriage. And
and why do you think it's so under attack? Because we've been talking about this a lot. Why? Why marriage? Why is it so under attack right now? Is it something that maybe, God thought was a good idea, but now it's not a good idea anymore? Has it changed? What is the whole reason behind all of these attacks? And what have we maybe done as Christians to open up this to an attack?
Well, I don't think we've done it well. If you look at Romans chapter 2, verse 24, it says, the Gentiles blaspheme the name of God because of you. In other words, because of us not living. And when we live in the principles of God, when we walk in the principles of God, it doesn't come smooth like butter. It comes with resistance. Paul said, I've got to press to get into the high call. And so to press means there's opposition and resistance. And I think what happens is because there's such an emphasis on romance, and Hollywood puts such an emphasis, we're not having those feelings, so we don't press and protect what God has created and said guard. And so we've got to live it well as believers. I mean, those who name the name of Jesus should have the strongest, most fruitful marriages. And so who are we really going to talk to in this curriculum?
Well, we wanted to make sure people understood we weren't just doing this to married couple, because the marriage does capture the image of Christ in the church. Then we also wanted it to be for singles, because your husband is your maker. And so you have this ability to understand how he needs to interact. And, when I travel and speak and I talk to single women, so many of them are like, oh, I just want to get married. I'm like, you must not need as much refining as me, because marriage is something that really takes off your rough edges. And knowing that, being single isn't a bad thing, but single people need to understand what marriage needs to look like. And when it's gone so far and been so distorted and so perverted, then, everybody has lost their frame of reference. We also want it to be for people who are engaged.
Yes.
Because we want them to be able to weigh some things early on and come into it instead of having the shocking revelation that you and I had early on in our marriage. We want it to be for those that are in difficult seasons in their marriage.
Yes, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, our hearts bleed for that. And we're really hoping to reach a lot of people whose marriages are on the rocks right now, or really, really looking like they're going the wrong direction.
And we're going to actually share some really vulnerable, open seasons of our lives. Because we've been married for 32 years.
Yep.
And so we've made a lot of mistakes. And there's a lot of things we have done wrong that you don't need to do wrong. And there's a lot of things that we've done well that you can be positioned to do well and actually do better. I mean, we're watching our son Addison and his wife Julie. They're doing it better
I wish
than
we
us.
did it.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
they did
can we
it.
redo?
Can we go back and rewind and
some
redo?
Of this? But yeah, and then anybody that wants to enrich their marriage, which actually is John and I. I mean, I have to be honest with you. This study has already enriched
our relationship.
Because we have had a good marriage, but we haven't ever intentionally studied this deep into marriage. And we've done a lot of things right by accident, but we've also done some things wrong that we want to do better. And so God not only made marriage, he has a plan for it.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed, but it's always been a subject of debate. Can we talk about this?
So marriage was created by God. It was thought up, created by God, and it was before any ministry.
Yeah.
It was before any institution on this earth. It was before the fall. It goes back. It is the oldest institution on this planet, and God originated it. And what's so amazing to me is that when God did all of the creation, he said, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then when man was alone, it's not good. And so God came up with an answer. But if you look at, to me, and to you, and we've discussed this, if we're going to really get an understanding of the definition of marriage, which is where we got to begin, we got to go to Jesus. We've got to go to the Word of God, and we've got to find out what he says. So in Matthew chapter 19, this is just startling, especially out of the Message Bible. It brings it out so well. But it says, one day the Pharisees were badgering him, Jesus. They said, is it legal for a man to divorce his wife for any reason? Now, of course, they thought it was. And Jesus answered, because they're always trying to trip him up.
The legal thing.
Yeah, the legal thing.
The legal thing.
They weren't guarding the spirit of their marriage, let's put it that way. He answered, haven't you read in your Bible that the Creator originally made man and woman for each other, male and female? And because of this, a man leaves father and mother and is firmly bonded. I love this. Firmly bonded to his wife, becoming one flesh. No longer two bodies, but one. Because God created this organic union of two sexes. No one should desecrate his art by cutting them apart. Wow. That is so amazing, isn't it, guys?
Desecrate his art. Organic union.
We got to talk about these things before we go on, because there's so much more.
Firmly bonded.
Talk to me about the organic union. I think you've really got a good understanding of this.
Well, we try to eat at Whole Foods. We try to be organic.
And good date place, by the way.
Which means we don't want something that is artificial.
Right.
We want something that is authentic. We want something that has grown in the soil.
Has life in it.
That has life in it. We want something that's going to actually bring life to our bodies, that's going to actually help us grow. And so there's an organic union. What God is actually doing, he's saying, I'm uniting two people so they can grow. I want two people that I'm going to weave together, and it's going to be a constant growth process. And it's not going to be an inorganic union. It's not going to be a forced union. I'm going to actually join them spiritually. And then what I have done spiritually is going to begin to weave and grow organically into every area of their life.
That's so powerful.
And it's interesting. God is pretty clear. It's two sexes.
Yep.
Male, female, husband, wife, man, woman. And that is because our differences make us one.
Yes.
Same does not equal one. Being different gives us the capacity to be one. Male and female are mere image bearers. We look different because we have different functions, but our differences is what unites us. And we have lost some of this idea of celebrating the differences. We have a culture trying to say, let's make the men more feminine, the women more masculine, let's meet in the middle. They don't understand there is an organic union when you have two that are different who have one heart and one purpose. And I love his art. We talked about art and we defined it as an expression that is appealing or extraordinary. So our marriages.
And think about his art. I mean, Michelangelo, amazing. But think about God's art.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about Eugene Peterson, the Message Bible, is he did so much research on backgrounds. And even though it is a paraphrase, he's really bringing in much more from his research into his translation or into his paraphrase. And I just think he really captured this. It is God's art. And who's going to bust up God's art? I mean, nobody would ever go to the Sistine Chapel and desecrate Michelangelo's, right? I mean, we have great respect for that, right? And I'm sure it's gone through trouble, it's gone through weather, you know, and atmospheric conditions that made it had to be restored, but we protect it. Well, why don't we protect God's art, you know?
Well, because I think it's because of a heart issue. Because when Jesus is going on in Matthew 19, verses 7 through 9, it says, and this is the Pharisees talking, they shot back in rebuttal. If that's so, why did Moses give us instructions for divorce papers and divorce procedures?
Wow, here we come, the legalists.
And Jesus said, Moses provided for divorce as a concession.
A concession.
To your hard-heartedness. But it is not part of God's original plan or God's original art. And he says, this is Jesus, Mr. Grace, I am holding you to the original plan.
Whoa. I'm holding you to the original plan.
To the original plan.
Wow.
And holding you liable for adultery if you divorce your faithful wife and then marry someone else. I make an exception in cases where the spouse has committed adultery. I mean, when I see this, why would Jesus say, I'm holding you liable? I think it's because he understood the hard-heartedness was not going to be an issue anymore. He was going to give them new hearts. He was going to take out the hearts of stone that looked for excuses to divorce and put in a heart of flesh that would look for a reason to love. And but this actually didn't just upset the Pharisees. This upset Jesus' disciples.
Well, the disciples,
they were
now they're
upset.
This. I mean, I just thought it was amazing, and I've never really seen this before until you and I really studied this out. But it starts out with the Pharisees badgering him, trying to get him, you know, caught up in his words. But now the disciples get upset.
They take Jesus aside, and they're like, we need to have a private discussion about
we're going to talk about this.
This is horrifying.
And so this is what the disciples come back and say. They said, if those are the terms of marriage, we're stuck. Now that is the attitude that people that are having struggles in marriage get. We're stuck. So instead of seeing the capability of coming through, the potential of coming through, they get the attitude of we're stuck, and we're stuck is a bad attitude.
And they're looking outside for their solution instead of at their mate to be a solution.
You know, I'm glad Jesus never looked at me and said, I'm stuck with John. I'm glad he's always looking for a way to get me through situations when I'm not so lovely, maybe.
You're always lovely.
Oh, you're so kind. Anyway, so if those are the terms of marriage, we're stuck. Now, this is the disciples. The disciples looked at him and said bluntly, why get married? But Jesus said, not everyone is mature enough to live a married life. Wow. Man, when I saw this and really got a hold of this, I thought, wow, not everyone's mature enough. So you want to get married, make sure you're mature in your walk with God, right? It requires, this is continuing with Jesus' words, it requires a certain aptitude and grace. Boy, we're preachers of grace nowadays, right? Marriage isn't for everyone, Jesus says. Some, from birth, seemingly never give marriage a thought. Others never get asked or accepted. And some decide not to get married for the kingdom reasons. But, and here's my favorite line, if you're capable of growing into the largeness of marriage, do it. Isn't that amazing?
That is my favorite thing.
Mine too. I love it.
The whole reason we get married is to enlarge our lives. Marriage is not supposed to be loss for anyone. And, you know, when John and I were preparing, we went through so many Facebook messages of people that just feel lost. Husbands that felt lost. Wives that felt lost. They feel like their lives are so small, so hopeless. Women saying, I'm praying that my daughters never get married because I don't want them to live in this. Men saying, I've done everything and I hate women. I mean, we were like, how has this happened? How has this gone from large
I felt responsible
to so small
because of not preparing. You know, our responsible is we're voices in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And how sad that we waited this long to do a marriage curriculum. Our staff has been asking us for years, and then I'm thinking, I kept hearing you read these comments from Facebook, and I'm going, oh God, because the weight
we would cry
of hurting
over
hearts,
the
weight of the hurting hearts just came on us. But you know, marriage God's intent for marriage is to enlarge us. And you know, when you got the attitude of we're stuck, guess what? You know, the light of the body is the eye.
Yeah.
And the light of the body is the way you perceive things. Right.
Yeah.
So if I perceive my marriage as I'm stuck,
a trap,
a trap, it's hopeless. Well, guess what?
It limits
That's
me.
the direction I'm going because you always go where your vision is spiritually. Okay?
Yeah.
But when you understand that this is holy, it's a covenant. It's God has put this together. It's His idea to enlarge us and make us productive and more fruitful. Then all of a sudden you'll say, it's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Okay? Right. And so I think what we've got is we've got a situation where we've got Hollywood says marriage is supposed to be this way, feelings, romantic, and all of this. But yet what we've got here is something so much bigger. We're fighting for being more fruitful, more productive. And so...
Yeah, and we looked at how people view marriage as a contract. You do what I expect of you, then I will stay with you. Right. You disappoint me, I'm out of here. And yet God sees marriage as a covenant.
As a covenant.
And when we looked at covenant, covenant says, I am giving all of me to all of you. Yeah. And everything I have is yours.
Yes.
And everything you have is now mine. And because of that, everything we do will be multiplied, enlarged, increased because of
more effective.
Because of covenant. But contract actually means a document or an agreement to restrict movement. Contract says these are the boundaries. You will not break this. If you break this, then I have the right to get out of this. I'm no longer stuck. That's what contract says. Covenant says, I'm stuck to you. Contract says my life for your life.
And look at the verb contract means contract.
It means to make smaller, to decrease in diameter. And when we look at this whole image of the tree trunk, you see that every year increases. It increases the diameter, increases the bandwidth. And so we want to see covenants, marriages, not be seen as, darn it, I'm a Christian and I'm married, and I'm stuck. I don't want to miss the rapture. I just gotta live with this man, and I hate him. I mean, that is not what the largeness looks like.
Now, Lisa, has it been easy?
No.
Okay.
No.
And you know, if Lisa asked me the same question, my answer is no. But has it been worth it?
Absolutely.
Has there been times when it looked hopeless for us?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And so
that I would have taken a contract out on you to kill you.
Yeah, I understand.
But not,
I understand that.
But no.
But
we totally.
Are you glad now we're sticking it through and we're committed to stick it through?
Absolutely.
Boy, so am I.
Absolutely. And I'm actually really excited about the future.
Yes.
And so we want to talk about what this largeness looks like.
Right.
And so I'm going to read Genesis because the whole framing of this is the story of marriage. And we want to talk about the purpose. God has a purpose for the marriage. And this was his idea in Genesis 1, verses 27 through 28. And I'm going to read the NLT. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Now, I just want to pause there. That actually means male and female captures the image of God.
Yes.
So when
not just
our
male,
culture...
Not just female. Male and female. So
when our culture attacks gender, it attacks the image of God.
Yes.
So an attack on marriage is an attack on how God relates to his people. But an attack on gender is an attack on the image of God, the reflection of God on the earth. And
so I want to emphasize, male or female. Because females were created in the image of God every bit as much as males were created in the image of God.
Yep. And it said, then God blessed them. He blessed them, the man and the woman, not just the man, not just the woman.
Right.
He blessed them, and God said to them, so this is a mandate for both of them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Then God, and this is verse 31, then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So in the beginning, John, men and women were allies. Yeah. They were not enemies.
Correct.
They were intimate allies. They were co-laborers. They were entrusted with a Genesis mandate. God said, I need you to take this story I've already given you. I need you to take this garden, and I need you to cause it to be fruitful. I need you to make it increase and multiply.
Fruitful, multiply.
I want
Look
you
at
to
these words. Fill the earth. Subdue it. Have dominion.
Was there any boundaries? Did he say, I only want you to take 16 miles square? He said, fill it.
Yep.
Just fill it.
Yeah.
He said, fill it, be fruitful. He didn't say how they had to be fruitful. He said, just be fruitful. And he said, everything you do, multiply. Don't divide. Subdue it. That means to create order. And then he said, have dominion. And so many people do not understand the difference between dominion and domination.
Yeah, that's right. Because, you know, when you have the fall, what happens is you have the battle of the sexes. And now, instead of dominion, you have domination and manipulation. All right, you have men trying to dominate women and women trying to manipulate men, right? Instead of being fruitful, you have barrenness.
Right.
Instead of, what else do we have? Multiplication. You have division.
Right.
Instead, and stats show it. I have 30 reasons of why marriage makes people and children better. And this is done by a government institution, so to speak.
Right.
And so, it's division. It's not multiplication.
Right.
So in other words, the enemy doesn't want us to multiply because God said, I want you to multiply. It doesn't just mean have children. Because let me tell you, experientially, I would not be where I am today. You would never have read one book by John Bevere had it not been for Lisa Bevere. I promise you, you would never have read a book by John Bevere. Your life never would have been touched.
Same for me.
Because
I would have lived small. I wouldn't have lived large. I would have lived small.
Yeah, and I would never have been the man I am today had it not been for Lisa Bevere. So when you start looking at that perspective, when the attacks come, you realize, okay, this is very small in the scope of the overall picture here. The overall picture is we're going to be fruitful. We're going to multiply. We're going to take dominion. We're going to literally bear great fruit for the kingdom. And so that's what the enemy's after. So when the enemy goes after marriages, especially Christian marriages, he wants to divide, he wants to conquer, and he wants to create barrenness. And this is so important that you understand this because this gives you a vision of why to fight for your marriage. Your marriage is so important. It's not your idea. It's not you just looking at a girl and just saying, oh my gosh, she's amazing. And the girl looking at the guy going, man, he's hot, or whatever she thinks. There's so much more involved here. It's something God ordained, God breathed on. And to me, it's so amazing that God says it's not good. The man's alone. It's not good.
Yeah.
But he said, it's very good when the man and the woman joined. And you know, they became one flesh, Lisa. And I really want to illustrate the one flesh. This became a reality to me when we were early on in our married years. I was training for the ministry, preparing for the ministry. And I literally was spending an hour and a half.
Breathing, sleeping, eating ministry.
Ministry.
Yes.
And I was praying for an hour and a half to 2 hours every single day, right? Now, my observation of Lisa was she prayed 10 minutes in the shower every day.
I prayed in the car, too.
Okay, in the car.
Yeah, I prayed in the car, too.
And
I take 30-minute showers.
And so now I'm feeling the responsibility of being this young leader of the household and making good decisions. Well, almost, I'd say more than half of the decisions I was making were not good. And we were seeing the results of those decisions not being good. So one day I'm out praying and I'm like protesting. I'm like, God, I don't get this. I pray an hour and a half every day. I spend all this time with you. Lisa prays 10 minutes in the shower and 5 minutes in the car. And she's right on her wisdom most of the time.
I'm
what
just
is
more
up with
sensitive
this?
in the spirit.
So the Lord showed me something. He said, son, he told me, get a piece of paper, and he said, draw a circle. So I got this paper, and I drew a circle, okay? And he said, now, I want you to put X's all over the circle. So I put X's all over this circle. I kept putting the X's, and he said, fill it up with X's. So I filled it up with X's. All right? He said, now, draw a line right down the center of that circle. So I drew a line right down the center. He said, that half is you. That half is Lisa. You're not one in yourself anymore. You are one now with Lisa.
Right. So good.
So this is you. And he said, you're making your decisions as the head of the home based off of 50. He said, all the X's represent information you need from me to make wise decisions. He said, so you're making your decisions off of 50% of the information. He said, because 50% of what I'm revealing is over here on Lisa's side. He said, if you're going to be a smart husband, this is what God told me. He said, you're going to learn how to draw out of Lisa without dominating her, without intimidating her. Draw from her what I'm putting in her heart so that together you can make a good decision. And so that illustrated to me how that we are one flesh and how important it was for me to have Lisa involved in all of my decisions.
Yeah. You know, and I think a lot of women and a lot of men don't know how to draw that out of each other. You know, we speak to each other as though, well, that's just stupid. Why would you do, you know, like instead of being persuasive, instead of knowing how to give input, because we didn't know how to do that at first. I was like, that's a horrible decision. I told you not to do that. Why don't you just come to me? I am wise and wonderful. And so but he was like, no, because he felt so ashamed because I didn't make it easy for him.
Well, now the male ego's getting in there. You know, I want to
Exactly.
prove that I'm smart. Prove that I'm a good leader, and that's stupid.
And so
that's a spiral down where both of the way we're responding on that is a spiral down there. That's not promoting unity.
Or
that's
dominion.
promoting competition.
Right, exactly. And dominion, you know, is where I exercise my authority and my influence on your behalf, and you exercise your authority and your influence on my behalf. Domination is like I exercise my authority for my benefit.
Right.
And so that is a different, and manipulation is I exercise my influence to benefit myself. And you and I
That's so
had
good.
a revelation that marriage is not a power struggle.
It's a power union.
It's a power union. And so what happens is God will take two people that see things very differently and use the two of them to begin to multiply. And really what God is doing, he's actually really trying to recover everything that was lost. Because in the fall, we lost our relationship with God, and most people do a great job about preaching, you know, that God came to seek and save, and they'll say the lost, but actually the Bible says God came to seek and save that which was lost, or what was lost. And most people in the church don't understand what was lost. We lost our relationship with God. We lost our relationship male to female. We lost our relationship people to the earth. We lost our relationship brother to brother, sister to sister. And so we need to actually preach the gospel to all that was lost. And I really believe that key begins in the marriage. Yes. The recovery of what's lost starts with two people that have one heart.
So that means we've got to have a vision for our marriage.
Absolutely.
And so in the next session, Lisa, we're going to talk about beginning with the end in mind.